Hello, this is Paul here, and I'm going to show you how to make a simple, basic wooden chair style model like this. It shouldn't take too long. I actually did a video for this earlier, but the problem was I kept getting phone calls at the house. We have a landline, so we get a lot of spam junk phone calls, and it made me lose my train of thought. So I'm just going to start over from scratch recording the video and try to get it up again, but this is what the end result should be, and hopefully there's not too many interruptions this time. I hope I don't jinx myself by saying that. So let's start recording. Yeah, I'm recording on a simple basic chair. So I'm going to start from scratch. New reload startup file, and while I'm doing this, before we continue on, I'm going to go over my settings, my input settings. I have my mouse set to select with the left key. That's my personal preference. But if something doesn't work, the same for you. When I say to select something, that probably means that it should be the left mouse button, because I know Blender defaults to the right. And for add-ons, I have, let's see, I will have loop tools and F2. I don't think B-Surfaces will come into play, or TinyCAD this time, and I may use UV Align Distribute while doing this, so that lets you know what I've got. You can see right here. And since I'm in here, I'll do, what is it, screencast keys. So I'm going to turn on my screencast keys right now so you can see what my mouse clicks are. Okay, so here we go. We have our cube and our other stuff in the scene, and if you want, you can move this other stuff to another layer or hide it, but I'll just move it to another layer. So we have our cube here, and since I'm going to be making a chair and I know exactly what asset I am going to make, I'm going to call this, oh, I have my lamp selected. Yeah. Oops. I still have this. I gotta select the cube first. Alright. I'm gonna turn this cube into a chair, so I'm gonna call it a chair. So here's the chair. And I'm gonna drag it and drop it here. I saw that in another video, and that's a handy little tip. If you want your mesh name and your object name to be the same, you can just drag and drop from within. Alright. Saw how that works. Okay. I'm going to change the cycles mode. I may be messing with that later, but probably not too much. So just to get things ready for cycles, use nodes here, use nodes there, and I'll do the lamp later when I bring it back to the first layer. Alright, so now we're going to model the chair. So since we have the cube here, we can just use this for the chair bottom. So I'm going to scale it on the Z-axis down a bit, like so, and it's fine where it is for now. I'm also going to Control Alt click and select those edges for the edge ring. Control B to bevel, and I scroll the mouse wheel, and if for some reason you don't have access to the mouse, you can look for this menu right after the command is executed, or while this command is still technically considered active, you can push the F6 key, and that'll give you a menu. And then you can select the segments from there instead of scrolling. Okay. So next thing's next. I'm going to hit Control and Space to hide my handles, because when I work, I grab them by accident and they get in my way, so I just disable them. Let's inset. And I'm going to hit X and F for delete those faces. And I'm going to select this inside area here. Control F for face actions and G for grid fill. And offset, change the span, there we go. That looks good, and usually once you have settings in your grid fill, it remembers them, so if I hit Control F, G, you see the next time around it does it just right. So that's the bottom of the chair, and now we can do the back of the chair. So what I'm going to do is select this spot here and hit Shift S to bring the cursor to selected. And where the cursor is where your new object will be added. So I'm going to add a cylinder, and vertex count and all the other stuff seems about fine the way it is. So what I will do is just scale it on the z-axis, make it thinner, and deselect it, and I am going to hit it, rotate on the x-axis, and I'll make that 90. And if you're curious as to what axis is what, it's X is the red one, Y is the green one, and Z would be blue, but I don't have it turned on. I just stick the way it is when it starts out, so there it is. Okay, so I'm selecting that inside of here, and I'm going to hit W and bridge edge loops there, like so. And some of these commands, there's actually more than one route to get to them, so keep that in mind. And to select a mesh, if it's not connected at any vertices, I use the L key because that will select any freestanding group of meshes. So you keep that in mind, G, C, and so. So now we have what will be the back of the chair, and what I'm going to do is select a loop there. And if you hit number pad period, you can navigate with it. And I'm going to hold down Control and then change the face selector, and it'll select the faces around. I'm going to grow my selection with Control and numpad, like so. Shrink it down by 1, also the numpad, and like that. And this is going to be start of the chair back. And I'm going to use individual origins to extrude these out, so I'm going to have to add some faces so it works. I really need to deselect that, did I? Alright. So I'm going to go down here to where my pivot center is and change to individual. Extrude down a bit. And I'm going to select this and move it up. And I'm going to scale it ever so slightly larger. So scale it on the y-axis. So that should be good. And move these back up on their own axes. So I'm going to select that one and select that one. And since individual is still active, I should be able to go G and Z, Z. Oh, you know what? I gotta change to normal. Alright. I'm gonna do the transform orientations from the normal global setting to another setting. The first setting is still the global by default as far as I know, and if you move, so you're moving, it's on the global axis, then you hit Z for once, and that's still the global, and you hit the Z again, and that's local, and maybe I should do medium point. So G, Z, yeah, it should be local axes. Individual origins. I don't know why it's being weird. It's being weird. Okay. I might be able to do loop slide. Yeah, I'll just do a slide, edge slide there. What you want is the bottoms of those to be inside the chair. And since those faces are inside something, I am going to delete them. Alright. And this is the chair back. R and X. And I'm just going to tilt it back a few degrees. Move it back like so. So here's the chair bottom and the chair back. Now I will add some legs to the chair. And what I think I'm going to do is figure out where I want to put my leg. So what I'm going to do is select these 3 vertices, because that should be the midpoint of that would be a good spot to put the leg. And put my cursor right there by snapping to it. When you have more than one thing selected, the cursor snaps to the midpoint of that too. Okay. So that's the bottom of the chair and the back of the chair. I'm going to add a cylinder again. Change this to 16 because this is going to be a smaller diameter and we don't need a super dense mesh there. And scale it down a bit like so. And I am going to move this with snapping. Actually, I'll scale this constrained like so, using Shift C this time just to change the diameter. And I'm going to use the magnet with snapping, so I am going to switch to face mode and its closest, which is fine, and I am going to move on the Z axis. And then to turn on snapping temporarily instead of having to click on the magnet, I'm going to use Control. So let me move it down below it first. And there. Okay. So that is the chair leg. And if I can get that face, I don't need that face anymore, so I'm going to hit X and F to delete it. And here's another tip to keep in mind, that if you can avoid repeating doing stuff, that will save you time when modeling. So if you can adapt your workflow to do things early before you repeat, or can try to think ahead, it's not always easy to do so, but if you can try to think ahead in your modeling, what you can do is save yourself steps, and that makes it a lot faster. It's something to keep in mind. I try to do it, but it's not always that easy. You save a lot of time when you're modeling stuff. So G, Z. I'm going to move that down for the leg like so. And I'm going to inset the bottom leg like so. And I'm going to grid fill that, so I have to delete it. There's no way to grid fill with the inactive face. I don't know why they don't let you do that. So you have to delete a face to do the grid fill. You can't just grid fill in an existing face. Which is kind of dumb, but can you say they don't fix it? You don't think it's a problem, but yeah. It would be convenient. Alright. I just like that because it keeps things neat. So, what I am going to do now is, since this is on the centered and it should be symmetrical front to back, I am going to do this. I am going to set my cursor here, and I'm going to set my center to the 3D cursor, my pivot point center, and I am going to select this leg, and I am going to duplicate it, and I just right click so it stays where it is, and I'm going to scale Y 1 negative, and I'm going to hit Control N to make the normals consistent. And then I am going to go to the front view, and I go to X-ray view, which is the Z key, and I'm going to select all these here because I'm trying to think ahead, and I'm going to move these out ever so slightly bit to the right, like so. Yeah. Okay. So now I have my legs splayed out ever so slightly because chairs tend to do this, makes them more stable. And then I am going to select both of these, shift duplicate on the x-axis, so 1 negative. Okay, so I have a duplicate. I need to scale it on the x-axis. There, and then make the normals consistent. So now I have the 2 back legs splayed out that way and the 2 front legs. So now they're going outwards, so now we need to do them front and back a little bit. So I'm going to hit it like this from the side view. Same thing before, except this time I'm moving constrained to the Y. as like so. So now we have the chair with the legs like that. Well, you know what I should have pointed out is when I made the legs, I could have prepped them for UV mapping, but because that would have saved time. Anyhow, then I can still do it because it's fast. I was just saying that if I marked the edges for split before I duplicated the legs, it would have saved me having to do it on all the legs. So think about that. So when you're saving yourself steps and you're duplicating objects, try to think how many things can I get away with doing before I duplicate, so I don't have to go back and do it to all the things. So in that case, it would be marking the edges for splits. But I'm just going to do it on the individual because I didn't think far enough ahead this time. So bottom of each leg around this perimeter here. And you know what? There's another way to do this. I'm going to do it this way. I'm going to select a face and select all the ones that are coplanar. And then I'm going to go to edge mode and select the boundary. So, and I was using the hotkeys. If you're not sure what the hotkeys are, they will be the underlined stuff when you pull up your menus. So if you see an underlined letter on your menu, that's a hint, that's your hotkey. Alright. So I'm going to do is mark seams around all the bottom edges, so we have the bottom of each leg with a seam. And what I'm going to do is put the seam on the back, or the inside area towards the back. And the reason why I do that is because if there's going to be a mess in your UV mapping, it's usually where you don't want to see it. So if you have a seam, that's usually where you might have a problem with the map stretching or being weird. So try to hide your seams in a spot where they're not seen. So Control E and mark seams. Alright. Trying to keep this quick, but I know the time is probably stretching. I don't have a timer counting down on me. So I got that much done, and now I want to add the little back pegs that go in the back of the chair. Oh, before I add them, I gotta snap the cursor to where I want the cylinder to start out. Right in the middle, and I'm going to add a cylinder. And it's already 16, which is kind of small. Should I reduce it more? Probably get away with 12, but 16 will be fine. I'll just leave it there. So scale, Shift Z, and make this thin. G, Z, and scale Z. I'm going to rotate X. I'll do it at the medium point. It's close enough. Alright, what am I doing here? Just adjusting it so it goes inside a bit. So what I want to do is poke the ends of this into the chair. So now I have that ready and the ends are poked into the chair, because the way I'm modeling it, I am going to do is see Shift hide, so to hide everything else. Select the ends. Trying to think ahead here. I'm going to delete them because you don't see them. And then I'm going to go on the back side. Select the edge, Control E, mark for seam. I wanted to say mark for cut, but I know that's not the case. It's mark for seam. Unhide everything. And now that will be ready for unwrapping, because if I had the tops and bottoms, I'd put loops like I did the chair like bottoms. And you want a long cut because it's a cylinder and it will unfurl when unwrapping. So now that's already prepped and done, I can duplicate it and I won't have to repeat those steps. Just like that. Shift D, X, like so. And I'm going to snap my 3D cursor to center just to make sure it's centered. And then I'm going to set my origin to the 3D cursor. And I'm going to duplicate and scale X 1 negative. And I'm just going to Control A, Control N. So I got that. And I can probably do a little cross bracing under the chair. So I will do that next. So what I want here is somewhere in the middle of this edge, I believe. That edge running down the middle of the leg. I am going to snap my cursor to the middle of that. Because an edge is the 2 points, so it's going to snap to the middle. Alright. So, time to add another cylinder. This time I am going to rotate it X 90. Scale, Shift Y, then like so. I'm using the number pad hotkeys. And like the other stuff, I am going to get rid of the ends. They will not be seen, so you can delete them. And I am going to go on the inside edge of this. That's where I'm going to put my seam. That will be ready for mapping, and I am going to duplicate it. I'm going to snap my cursor to the center first. I'm going to duplicate that. S, X, 1, negative. Alright, Control N. And I'm going to select both of these, and I'm going to put the cursor to the center of those. Oops. Cursor to the center of the selection, and then I'm going to select this one, and I'm going to duplicate it, and it doesn't matter where I put it, I am going to snap it, and I'm going to go selection to cursor offset. And if I did this without the offset, all the points that are active would go to it, and it would collapse them. So I'm going to do offset so they do not collapse, but everything still shifts to that location. And just rotate this on the z-axis 90, and I'm going to scale this on the x-axis like so, make it a little thinner. And now we have our chair. Excuse me. Oh, yeah. Been sick for a while there, so pardon. And there's only one thing we haven't prepped for the separating on UV mapping, so that's going to be this chair bottom. I'm going to select those edge loops with the Alt select, hold down Shift, and select here and here. Actually, I'll make it these. Yeah, here. So all those edges are going to be marked for seams. So I was working with somebody, I was just trying to explain where one of the seams marked what they got ahead of me. And I think they marked everything for seams, so yeah, that was an issue. And then for the chair back, I'm going to do is select here, and I am going to left control click. I know I usually say the select click, but some people have it the other way. So I am going to do is hold down control and then left click, and it will chain select. Because if you hold down control and right click, it's going to do some weird stuff. So yeah, hold down Control and left click and it change selects. And then I will go to Control E, go to Y, and that gets the boundary. And Control E and mark seams. And you know what else is, hold on a sec. Are the bottom faces still on there? I think they are. Yes, they are. Oh no, they're not. Okay, I did delete those. Just want to make sure. Just wanted to make sure I got those deleted. So that should be the finishing of the meshing out of the chair. So at this point, we'll go to the UV mapping. And Blender conveniently has these window layouts in it. So instead of trying to drag all the windows around, I just use the layouts. So I'm going to go to UV editing. And I'm going to select all here, UVs, and unwrap. So now we have our layout of the chair, but it's still not quite optimal. So I'm going to hit Control P. And that will reposition islands. That's the same as pack islands. Control P is pack islands. And while all that is selected, I'm going to go to the rotation scaling point, and I'm going to do individual origins and scale down and make these slightly smaller so I have some room for these things to bleed out. And the term bleed actually comes from the printing industry, because where you overlap your print on a page, it goes off the edge of a page, and in this case, instead of going off the edge of the page, it's going off the edge of your UV islands, but the same idea applies. And the reason you overprint is because in the case of 3D printing, or not 3D printing, 3D modeling or 3D texturing, is you will have aliasing artifacts that will pull in surrounding pixels on your map. So you want to overpaint the areas of each UV island so it doesn't pull the surrounding pixels when this is textured into your texture, and it'll look crappy. So you overpaint everything. So what you want to do is scale everything to have enough room so when you overpaint it will not be a it will not be a total mess. Okay, that's what I was trying to say. There's a reason for it. So I'm going to give stuff more room. It helps to check your islands, see where they are, give them a little bit more breathing room. And since I have UV Align Distribute as a tool, I'm going to turn on the toolbar and oh. How do I do this? Yeah, I think so. I still have some room on the template here, so I'm gonna just bodge these over like so. Select these islands. Just give them a little bit more breathing room on the. Oops. See how that works. And UV Align Distribute I like because I can just do this. It's a good plugin to have turned on, so No, it takes a little while. This would be faster if I wasn't showing you how to do this. And yeah, that should be good. And everything else, those are. So what you see here are the parts of the chair arch, parts of the chair bottom, and the rest is, I think that's the back and inside of the chair arch. One of these will be the perimeter of the chair bottom, and the legs are a little wavy because I moved the bottoms out, and these are the bottoms of the legs. So everything you see mapped should be stuff you see, and all I'll do is add a new texture, and I will make it a UV grid like so. And then I will go to positing for the UV, and we have the chair material selected. So what I'm going to do is add an input, or actually a texture, image texture. And you don't even have to connect the socket, it just has to be the one that's in there, and I'm going to set it to that untitled texture. So now if we look at it in the display mode and set this to textured, it should be visible. So now we can see if there's any weird stretching or stuff going on. And since this isn't smooth and it's low polyish, that should be good enough. You got a chair, and it is pretty much ready to go. So I am going to do File, Save As, and I'll just replace this other wooden chair. It should be the same. So, but normally you would name your files and save it, and there you go. You got your basic wooden chair ready for texturing, and all you gotta do is paint it and hook it up. I might do another video on that later, but this will get you started, and you got a basic chair, and that was pretty easy to model, nothing too fancy. So there you go.